The Smithsonian Faculty Fellowship Program represents a rewarding academic professional development opportunity for faculty at Montgomery College. The fellowships are a product of a unique collaboration between Montgomery College and the Smithsonian Center for Learning and Digital Access. It's the first of its kind between the Smithsonian Institution and a community college.
Jackie Middleton, Department Coordinator of Business and Management, has taught business, management, and legal studies as a faculty member at the Germantown campus for 26 years. During that time, her knowledge, skills, ability, and experience have resulted in an excellent legal studies program at Germantown and have earned her a number of awards, including Montgomery College's Outstanding Faculty Award, the National Institute of Staff and Organizational Development Award, and Educator of the Year in Who's Who's Among Educators. She is currently a faculty member for Sister to Sister, a component of the Boys to Men program. A U.S. Air Force officer retiree, Professor Middleton had an interesting earlier career as Commander of Criminal Investigations for the Office of Special Investigations. As a special agent, she led numerous criminal investigations in the U.S. and abroad. In addition, she worked closely with the Secret Service as the commander in charge of Protective Service for the Vice President of the U.S. in Kennebunkport, Maine. Professor Middleton is a well-known motivational speaker in business, management, and legal studies. She has spoken nationally on leadership, management, strategic planning, and civility, and diversity in the workplace.
I really enjoyed this fellowship. The theme just jumped out at me, just like some of my colleagues said, it was my time. The theme of American ingenuity and innovation and enterprise. I spent some time with Mimi and Denise, and they just really talked me into it. Not really, but they told me all about the program, and I was really excited about it because of the theme of American ingenuity and innovation and enterprise. I didn't know, just like some of my colleagues, what direction we were going to end up in, and this is the result right here. So I put my proposal together thinking that I was going to go all around the world and pick all these entrepreneurs and put it into this activity for my students. And then I looked at the migration of slavery from Africa and how the African slaves brought all their talent, skills, and abilities and their innovation and creativity and ideas to this continent. Then I went to the great continent of the European nations, and I looked at a lot of the European entrepreneurs, some that I knew about, some that I didn't know about, and how they migrated to the North American continent, to America, as immigrants. As we know, that's a great topic today. This country was built on immigration and through the slave trade. Then I went down to the great continent of, I stayed over in Europe for a while, and I visited the Pacific Rim nations and looked at the entrepreneurs in the Pacific Rim nations and just found out some wonderful, wonderful inventions and ideas that they brought to this country. Then I went to, also visited the Middle Eastern nations and learned a lot about Middle Eastern entrepreneurs and innovators and creators of ideas and designs. They were architects, they were engineers, they were scientists, they were mathematicians, they were artists, they were musicians. Then I went down to South America and I learned about South American entrepreneurs, innovators who were architects, engineers, designers, educators, chemists as well. And I said, I can't put all this into my proposal. It's just too much. I did all that research and it's just too much. So I had to tighten up that proposal. I let Mimi, Denise looked at it. They gave me some feedback and I tightened it up. But I still had in my mind that Montgomery College, which I've been here for 29 years, was the most diverse community college in this country, which is where I wanted to be at after I came out of the Air Force. I wanted diversity because I went all around the world, and diversity was something very important to me and my family. I grew up in a background of people that came from around the world, being from a military child to a military person. So I said, let me take a look at what I really want to do. So the first journey that we had was to visit the museums. That was amazing. I want to thank Philippa, she left already, and Tess. That was an amazing journey. We went, gotta wear your tennis shoes though. But it was an amazing journey during spring of 2016. We visited all the museums and had such wonderful, wonderful curators that gave us the background to the museums. And we saw innovation, and we saw the theme of the American innovation, ingenuity, and enterprise theme that year. That semester. And we went to all the museums, and I still didn't know which museum I wanted to take my students to yet. But after visiting all the museums, I finally got to the Native American Museum. And one of the curators, who's a phenomenal person, Dr. Jose Barrios, gave us the tour. And it was amazing. My colleagues could attest to that. It was an amazing tour about the Native Americans. And I said, this is the museum for me, because I wanted to talk about the Native Americans, of how they were here first and everybody came after, and how they laid the foundation for all of us to thrive and survive and be on this great continent in this great country called America. So we spent that time, and during the spring, me and my colleagues, we did presentations. And the other thing that was really impressive to me and wonderful to me, and that really hit my spirit, is that everybody that presented, starting with Ali and Dan and everybody that was in it, Natalie, and Cheryl with her music, I learned so much from my colleagues that enhanced my skills and my knowledge and my abilities that I never even thought about. I felt like I was a student in a PhD program. So we did that during the spring, and then during the summer, I had to do some summer work. So I spent some time, I already knew that I wanted to go to the Native American Museum. I spent some time reading some books. I spent time reading about 10 books about the Native Americans all over this continent in South America, and it gave me some more ideas. And literally, I sat in the library. I didn't want to bring these books home because I didn't want to be up late at night reading them. So I sat in the library and I read and I took notes about all the Native Americans, over 2,000 tribes that I didn't know about. My family, my grandparents are Cherokee Indian. I knew about that part of my family, but I didn't know about all this wealth of Native Americans and what they've contributed to this country that laid the foundation for the rest of us. So I did that during the summer. Then, we can go on a little bit there. Oh, I got the clicker. I got it. Then so here are the native peoples. Then I also had another idea that was going to help me with my student project. I got on a plane and I went to California. I went to California, Southern California, and I visited 2 reservations. One was the San Manuel Reservation in Highland, California, and I also had a chance to sit and talk with Chief Judge Anthony Lee. Chief Judge Anthony Lee, he's the civil court judge for the San Manuel Council Reservation. I spent time with Anthony. It was an amazing, amazing time. We had lunch, we spent some time talking, and he's Mohawk Indian. And he also told me about the Apache Indians up in it's called Top Mountain, Pentop, Arizona, which is where he comes from. He commutes back and forth to California. So I spent time with Judge Anthony Lee and spent time on the reservations. Just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for me to see the San Manuel Reservation and get a feel for the lifestyle and the culture and the history of those Native Americans and what they are facing even today. So I did that. Then I flew back, came back home, got ready for my students. I picked a class that I felt would be a class that would benefit from this activity, would benefit from my experience more than any other class, and that was my Introduction to Business class. Because in that class, I required them to do an individual business plan. They come up with their own ideas, innovation, creativity. They write those plans, they research those plans, and then they present those plans. They also do an international plan where they go to other countries and they do the research on the demographics, the economics, the infrastructure, the financials, and then they present that too. So they go all around the world back into the classroom. Then in October, we went to the museum, the Native American Museum. It was a wonderful Sunday afternoon that I spent with them. And the thing about this wonderful day, the weather was really perfect for that day, was that not only did they show up, they were all excited before then. Not only did they show up, their family members showed up. Their brothers, their sisters, their nieces, their nephews, their fathers, their mothers. Prior to that, though, I prepped them before the museum, and let me show you what the prep looked like. The prep looked like the peoples of the Chesapeake Bay. That was the exhibit that was at the Native American Museum during the time that I was taking my students. So I focused on the peoples of the Chesapeake Bay. For example, the Pamunkey Indians. You'll be familiar with a lot of these names because these are the names around our area. This is Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and Washington, D.C. The Pamunkey Indians, so we had some time to talk about them and learn about them. We also looked at the Middleton Indians. We looked at their objects, their history, their culture, their trials and tribulations, their challenges, their inventions and their ideas, and their contributions to the American continent. We looked at the Chickamauga Indians. We learned about them, the same types of things: innovation, creativity, their ideas, what they contributed to this country. For example, one of the Native American tribes invented the first house, and it's called the snow house. So as I said earlier, they laid the foundation in architecture, engineering, chemistry, history, reading and writing, artifacts, objects, science, and on, math as well. Then we looked at the Nasamon Indians. You can see the different, very proud people, very colorful people. They all lived along the coastside of the Chesapeake Bay because they knew that fishing, that's where they would gather their food, and that's where they would survive along the bodies of waters of the Chesapeake Bay. We looked at the Piscataway Indians. You're familiar with that name as well. We looked at the Rappahannock Indians. All these names are familiar to us. And then we looked at the Nanticoke. And then lastly, I looked at the Black Indians. Wanted to take a look at the Black Indians of the 15th century. So we looked at the Black Indians. And the story goes like this, and very quickly, is that when the Indians came off of the slave ship, when the Africans came off of the slave ship, they had learned so much about the culture of their people who captured them. Okay? And when they got off the ships, they ran into the woods. They ran into the woods and met who? The Native Americans. Okay? They met the Native Americans, and the story goes on where, they got married. I guess they got married, I don't know. They met each other, fell in love, and there you go. And one of the biggest groups that our history tells us about is the Seminole Indians. Okay, the Seminole Indians in Florida. And then we landed at the National American Indian Museum. So at the National American Indian Museum, my students and I had a wonderful time. That's Thomas and Laura at the metro station. They came down on metro, they drove cars, they brought family, friends, their parents, their nieces, nephews, brothers, and sisters. I met their entire families. It was wonderful. This is us coming into the museum. One of our museum tour guides, she's a Yoruba Indian. Okay, and told us about her culture out of South America. And such a wonderful tour guide. She showed us, just the entire day spent at that museum was just amazing with her. So we focused really on the Indians of the Chesapeake Bay, but we also saw all the other different tribes and the cultures and the artifacts, the history, innovations and ideas of the Native Americans. So you can see the different artifacts and objects. There's my entire group. The tour guide just said, wow, such a large group. That was because they brought their families and friends. Yeah. Statue of a little girl behind George Washington and Native Americans. They were impressed with that statue. Here are my students again, having a good time. A lot of the artifacts. Okay. Some of my colleagues can remember these artifacts, especially those shoes. There you go, Natalie. There are some of my students. They were impressed with the Inca Indians and how they made the Inca. If y'all remember the Inca Indians down in Peru, they were really impressed with the Inca Indians and how that happened. Go through some more of the artifacts. History, culture. We got, I think one of the most impressive times that they had is when they visited the Native American store. And they saw this little doll for $9,000. They were impressed with that. And asked me, Professor Middleton, why does this cost $9,000? I told them, I do not know. Then some more pictures. Some of my students, I'm going to go back to this one, just having a good time and having fun. Cal and Daniel. Cal greeting the little kid. Minor. Different artifacts. Just amazing, some of the artifacts. Then we got to the end of our journey, and the next day, which was a Monday, we went on our trip on that Sunday. They had some work to do in preparation for their project, and these were the reflection questions. What artifacts interest you the most and why? What did you learn that you did not know? What section of the museum attracted you the most and why? And which tribe interests you the most and why? So these are some of the quotes. Jessica, Sylvester, Andreas, Gabe, and Elise. Elise says, which Native American tribes interest you the most and why? She said the Chippewa Indians, because I am part Chippewa. Okay. This is Jacqueline. Jacqueline did not go on the trip with us because she had another obligation that Sunday, but she did go down, and she had a great time when she went to the museum. After we visited the museum that Sunday, we came back to the classroom, okay, and now they had to do their projects. And the unique thing about their projects, I gave them some parameters, but I also said, have fun with this and pick any entrepreneur that you want. You don't have to pick the Native Americans of the Chesapeake Bay, but you can pick any Native American. So they dressed up in their business attire. They had a few weeks to research their Native American, like this young man right here. He researched Mr. Sequoia. Another one researched Crazy Horse. They had fun with this. Kid Cootie, he's a musician. And here's Jacqueline. Jacqueline, I'm gonna read you her reflection. She said, I had an absolute pleasure in participating in a Native American Indian entrepreneur project. My great-great-grandmother was a full-blooded Piscataway Indian, making me 1/32nd of the Piscataway Indian tribe, which is something I have always been proud of. The fact that I am part Native American made this project extremely interesting for me. The flexibility of the assignment allowed me to incorporate my passion for horses into my research. I chose Adrienne Lau as my entrepreneur. She is part Cherokee Indian and is an Olympic rider and horse trainer. I greatly enjoyed researching and presenting this project, as well as hearing all of my classmates' presentations. It was fascinating learning about all the celebrities, athletes, business owners who I did not know were Native American. I learned so much from this class and loved every bit about it. And there's Jacqueline again. Thank you for listening to my presentation.